The teacups were still warm, their steam curling upward like ghosts in the quiet. The almond cookies I'd baked last night sat untouched, their edges crumbling into dust, as if they knew he wasn't coming back. It was 8 p.m., the hour Larry always walked through the door, his keys jangling in that familiar rhythm, his presence steady as a heartbeat. I stared at the front door, my eyes burning, willing it to open, praying I'd hear his footsteps on the hardwood floor. But the silence was suffocating, sinking into my bones like a truth I wasn't ready to face. Larry was gone. Forever. My name is Lauren Williams. For 16 years, I believed I had the kind of marriage others envied, the kind people whispered about with a touch of awe. Larry was my anchor, calm, successful, the kind of man who could steady a room with a single step. He never raised his voice, never missed a Monday with a bouquet of roses tucked under his arm, their petals soft against my fingers. He never let me worry about money, his steady job as a financial consultant smoothing over life's edges. We didn't have children, but we didn't need them. Our life was a perfect puzzle, each piece polished, fitting seamlessly, or so I thought. What I didn't see was the piece missing, hidden behind a locked door I was never allowed to touch, a secret that would unravel everything I believed about the man I loved. Larry died on a Saturday, the kind of ordinary day that shouldn't end in tragedy. The doctor's words were clinical, delivered with practiced detachment. Massive heart failure, quick, final. His face was kind but distant, as if he'd recited this script 100 times before. I nodded, pretending it made sense. But how do you make sense of losing the one person who held your world together? The funeral was a blur. Black dresses, damp handshakes, strangers praising Larry's charm, his success, his quiet strength. I clung to Helen, my best friend since our college days at UNC, her steady hand an anchor in the storm. She pressed glasses of water into my trembling hands, but I couldn't drink. Food tasted like ash, each bite a reminder of the life I'd lost. Then my sister Olivia arrived, her perfume sharp and cloying, her hug lingering too long, like she was claiming something that wasn't hers. A crack formed in my grief, a spark of unease I couldn't name, like a shadow moving just out of sight. "I'm so sorry, sis," Olivia said, her voice like honey, too polished, too perfect. Larry was like a brother to me. I wanted to believe her, to feel the warmth of her words, to lean into the sisterly bond we'd once shared. But her eyes weren't sad. They were sharp, sizing me up, as if she were measuring the weight of my grief. Then, as she swirled her wine, she dropped a bombshell that landed like a grenade. "I know it's not the best time, but Larry loaned me some money a while back. I was hoping to sort that out now that you're taken care of." I froze, my pulse loud in my ears, a drumbeat of suspicion. "What money?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She blinked, then laughed, a tinkling sound that grated against my nerves. "Oh, I guess he never told you." Her words were light, but they carried a weight that pressed against my chest, tightening the air in the room. That night, sleep was impossible. I wandered our house, my fingers trailing over the bookshelves lined with Larry's finance journals, the polished hardwood floors that gleamed under the moonlight, the wedding photo on the mantel, where his smile now seemed hollow, almost mocking. That's when I saw them, his keys, glinting on the hallway table like a dare, a challenge left behind. Among them was the key, heavier, older, different from the rest, its edges worn but sharp. The key to his garage, a place he'd dismissed years ago when I asked, his voice light but firm. "Just tools and grease," he'd said, chuckling, his hand brushing mine. "You wouldn't like it." I never pressed, never pushed. That was our marriage, simple, quiet, full of doors I left unopened, trusting him to keep them locked for a reason. But now, with Larry gone, those doors were all I had left, and the key burned in my palm like a question I could no longer ignore. The next morning, I drove to the garage, tucked in an old part of Brunswick, where buildings sagged like forgotten dreams, their windows boarded, their roofs rusted and peeling. This wasn't a place for Larry's pressed suits or client lunches, but every Saturday, like clockwork, he came here, his absence from our home a ritual I never questioned. The key felt cold, heavy in my hand as I approached the door, its surface pitted with age. It turned with a loud clunk, the sound echoing like a warning. I hesitated, my heart hammering, a voice in my head whispering to turn back. What was I about to find? But I had nothing left to lose. I pushed the door open, and the smell hit me, dust, oil, and something sharper, like secrets left to fester in the dark. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers brushing cold metal, then froze. This wasn't a garage. No tools, no car parts, just a room that screamed of a double life, a hidden world Larry had built without me. The lights buzzed, casting a cold, sterile glow over walls plastered with photos, news clippings, and maps marked with red pins, their points sharp as accusations. One wall was a meticulous grid of pictures, each pinned with eerie precision, as if someone had spent hours arranging this secret gallery. In every one, Larry stared back. Not my Larry, with his neat suits and measured smiles, but a stranger. Jeans, messy hair, a grin I hadn't seen in years, unguarded and alive. And in nearly every photo, he stood beside a woman. She was stunning, dark hair cascading in waves, sharp eyes that held a quiet intelligence, at least a decade younger than me. They were close, her hand resting on his arm, his smile brighter than it had been for me in years, unguarded in a way that twisted something deep inside me. Photos showed them at a ski lodge, snow dusting their shoulders, at a candlelit dinner, their glasses raised in a toast, on a camel ride in a desert, the horizon shimmering with heat. Some had dates in Larry's handwriting, precise and familiar. 8 years ago, 6, 4. One, dated September 2023, stopped me cold, my breath catching in my throat. That day, I'd been at home, stirring his favorite pot roast, the kitchen warm with the scent of rosemary, waiting for him to return from what he'd called a client meeting. But here he was, laughing with this woman and a young man in his 30s, all three beaming like a family, their joy a knife in my chest. On the back, Larry's handwriting, steady and cruel. Pamela and Frank. September 2023, my knees buckled, the room tilting. I grabbed the metal desk in the room's center to steady myself, its cold surface grounding me against the flood of betrayal. Papers were stacked everywhere, bank records with unfamiliar account numbers, company documents for businesses I'd never heard of, tax forms that didn't match anything I knew about Larry's work. Then I found it. A medical report from Crescent Heart Institute, dated 3 months ago, its pages crisp and clinical. Ischemic heart disease, stage 3, high risk of heart attack. The words blurred as I read them. He knew. He knew he was dying, and instead of telling me, instead of preparing me, he built this. A secret life with Pamela, with Frank, who had to be their son. 16 years. I'd stood by him, loved him, trusted him with every fiber of my being. And now the man I buried wasn't drafted to be my husband. He was a stranger who'd kissed my cheek 3 nights before he died, handed me a sapphire necklace in a velvet box, and whispered, "You're the only one for me." Lies. All lies. Woven into the fabric of our life, each one unraveling me thread by thread. My chest tightened, the room spinning, the walls closing in with their photos and secrets. Then I heard it. Footsteps, soft, deliberate, like someone didn't want to be noticed. Each step a pulse of danger in the quiet. I spun around, heart hammering, my breath caught in my throat. There he was, the man from the photo. Dark hair, strong jaw, eyes sharp and unreadable, like they held secrets of their own. "Lauren Williams?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious, cutting through the silence like a blade. I couldn't speak, my throat dry, my hands gripping the desk as if it could anchor me. "I thought you might come here," he said, stepping inside, his movements careful, like he was navigating a minefield. "I'm Frank Smith. Larry Williams was my father." The floor seemed to vanish beneath me, the world tilting on its axis. I gripped the desk harder, my mind blank, a white-hot void where answers should have been. "You're really his son?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, trembling with disbelief. "Yes," Frank said, unflinching, his eyes meeting mine with a quiet honesty that stung. "And I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this." "How long have you known about me?" My voice trembled, each word a struggle. "My whole life," he said, calm but raw, his words carrying the weight of years. "He told me he was married, that you didn't know about me. He kept us apart. My mom, Pamela, respected that. She never wanted trouble. But after she died last year, things changed." I sank into the chair, my legs giving out, the metal cold against my skin. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice a whisper, barely holding together. Frank pulled a folded paper from his backpack, its edges yellowed, worn with time. "This is a draft of a will," he said, handing it to me, his movements deliberate. "It's not official. He gave it to me 3 weeks before he died. Said the final version would go to you, but this was a backup, just in case." I unfolded it, my hands shaking, the paper trembling as if it carried the weight of his betrayal. Larry's handwriting stared back, familiar from years of birthday notes, grocery lists, and love letters that now felt like lies. It divided his assets, mentioned Frank, and named a company I'd never heard of, Mercury South Holdings. One line stopped me cold, my breath catching. Access to remaining documents kept in office vault. Code linked to personal item gifted to V. The sapphire necklace. The one he gave me 3 nights before he died. Its weight heavy in my memory. It wasn't just a gift. It was a key. A clue to a truth he'd hidden. I touched my collarbone out of habit, but the necklace was at home, locked in its velvet box, too heavy to wear, as if I'd known it carried something darker. "What's Mercury South Holdings?" I asked, my voice steadying, though my heart still raced. Frank exhaled, his eyes darkening. "One of his private companies, off the books, untraceable. He used it to move money overseas, away from prying eyes. After my mom died, I found accounts in my name I didn't open. I think he was setting something up, for both of us." "Why?" I pressed, my voice sharper now, demanding answers. "Because he knew he was running out of time," Frank said quietly, his words heavy with meaning. "And because he didn't trust his partners." I leaned back, the room closing in, the walls seeming to pulse with secrets. A secret vault, a hidden company, a necklace with a code, and a husband I never truly knew. "You think there's more?" I asked, my voice steady, but laced with fear. Frank nodded, his expression grim. "I think he left clues to keep us safe, but we need to be careful. Whatever he was hiding, it's bigger than we know." I didn't go home right away. I couldn't face the silence of our house, the untouched bed, the ghosts of a life I thought I knew. Instead, I called Helen, my voice shaking as I asked to come over. 25 minutes later, I was on her couch, the necklace between us like a ticking bomb, its sapphire gleaming with secrets. I told her everything: the garage, the photos, Frank, the will, the medical report that proved Larry knew he was dying. Helen didn't judge, didn't interrupt. She just whispered, "I'm so sorry." Her hand closing over mine, her touch a lifeline in the chaos. But I wasn't ready to cry, not yet. Tears felt like surrender, and I needed answers. I needed someone to blame. I drove to Olivia's condo, a fancy place that didn't match her constant complaints of being broke. The building was all glass and gate codes, a fortress of wealth that felt out of place for my sister, who always played the victim. My anger grew with every floor the elevator climbed, a fire building in my chest. Olivia opened the door in silk pajamas, a wine glass in her hand, her makeup flawless, like she was expecting someone else. "Well, if it isn't my grieving sister," she said, her smirk sharp as a blade. "Come to check out the widow's leftovers? Cut it out, Olivia!" I snapped, pushing past her into the living room, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. That's when I saw it. A framed photo on her shelf, its presence like a punch to the gut. Her and Larry, laughing, clinking champagne glasses, their faces lit with a joy I hadn't seen in years. The date in the corner, 6 years ago, a night I'd stayed home, too tired to attend his company's holiday party. "What is this?" I demanded, pointing at the frame, my voice low and dangerous. She sipped her wine slowly, her eyes gleaming with something dark. "A company holiday party. You were too tired to come, remember? Larry asked me to go with him." Her tone was casual, dismissive, as if drinking champagne with my husband while I folded laundry was nothing. "How well did you get along?" I asked, my voice shaking, each word a step closer to the truth I feared. Her smile faded, her eyes narrowing. "I know about Pamela," I said, my voice low and sharp, cutting through the air. "I know about Frank, the garage, the company, the will. I know everything. So if there's more, tell me now." Olivia's eyes flickered, a crack in her composure. She refilled her glass, her movements deliberate, then spoke softly, her voice like ice. "Fine. The truth? I'm pregnant. 11 weeks. It's Larry's." The world stopped. My mind went blank, a white-hot void where thoughts should have been. "You slept with my husband," I whispered, my voice breaking, the words tasting like betrayal. She shrugged, unapologetic, her eyes cold. "Don't act so shocked, Lauren. You had the perfect life. House, dinners, roses every Monday. I was scraping by, always in your shadow, the broken daughter Mom never wanted. You were his routine, his duty. I was his escape." I slapped her before I realized I'd moved, my hand stinging as her glass shattered on the floor, wine pooling like blood. She didn't flinch, didn't cry. She just smiled, her eyes glittering with triumph. "There's the real Lauren," she said, her voice low. "Not the perfect little wife. Just a woman who finally knows her life was a lie. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice quieter now, trembling with a mix of rage and pain. "You wouldn't have believed me," she said, her tone sharp. "You always thought I was jealous. And maybe I was. But this was about me getting something for myself, something you could never understand." "You didn't just take something," I said, my voice steadying, though my hands shook. "You took everything." Her eyes softened, but her words cut deeper. "The baby's your family, whether you like it or not." My throat tightened, a scream trapped inside me. I wanted to shatter her world, to make her feel the pain she'd inflicted. But instead, I said, I'll honor Larry's will. Not for you. For the baby. They didn't choose this. She blinked, caught off guard, her mask slipping for a moment. I turned and left, the crunch of broken glass under my shoes echoing like gunfire in the quiet condo. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't face the empty bed, the silent kitchen, the echoes of a life built on lies. At Helen's, I stared at the ceiling, the necklace burning in my palm, its weight a reminder of the secrets it held. The next morning, Frank picked me up, his face tense but determined. Helen insisted on coming, her voice firm. "You're not opening your husband's secret vault alone," she said, tossing her coat over her shoulder with a fierce glint in her eye, her loyalty a beacon in the darkness. Larry's office was on the 17th floor, a satellite space, he'd called it, brushing off my questions with a smile. I'd never seen it, never set foot in this part of his world. Frank swiped a key card. He was listed as a co-owner, a fact that stung like a fresh wound. The receptionist barely glanced at us, as if Larry's secrets were just another day at the office. The space was cold, modern, with no trace of me, no photos, no warmth, just gray walls and the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne, sharp and foreign, like a stranger's presence lingering. Frank pointed to an abstract painting behind the desk, its jagged lines like a wound torn open. "The safe's behind that," he said, his voice low. I pulled out the necklace, my fingers trembling as I twisted the clasp, my breath catching. A hidden compartment popped open, revealing a metal plate with carved numbers, glinting like a secret unveiled. Frank slid it into the safe's keypad, his movements precise. A low beep, a click, and the door swung open, the sound echoing like a door to the truth. Inside were contracts with foreign letterheads, financial reports detailing transactions I couldn't comprehend, and a key-tagged bank safe deposit, Federal Trust. Frank scanned the documents, his face tightening, his eyes narrowing. "Foreign banks," he said, his voice low. He was moving money fast, hiding it from someone, or something. I opened the wooden box, my hands unsteady, my heart pounding. Inside was a gold ring with a small diamond, its band engraved with words that stopped my breath. "And always, Pamela." My breath caught, sharp as a knife, the room tilting around me. He was going to propose, I whispered, my voice barely there, the words tasting like ash. Or maybe he already did. Helen gasped beside me, her hand flying to her mouth. Frank looked away, his jaw tight, his eyes shadowed with pain. In that sterile office, the truth crashed over me like a tidal wave, pulling me under. Larry loved Pamela. Maybe he loved me too, in his fractured, selfish way. But she got the real him, the man who laughed in photos, who lived without restraint, who dreamed of forever with her. I got the performance, the roses, the lies locked behind secret doors. Then Frank handed me a letter, my name scrawled on the front in Larry's familiar script, each letter a reminder of the notes he'd left me over the years. I opened it, my heart racing, the paper trembling in my hands as if it could feel my fear. "Lauren, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry. I never had the courage to tell you the truth, to say out loud what I should have years ago. I was selfish, building two lives because I couldn't let go of either. I loved you, but I know that feels empty now. Maybe it always was. I wanted you to have peace, to be safe. That's why I left you the papers, the access, the truth. Burn it, bury it, or tell the world. It's your choice now. Forgive me if you can. If not, I understand. Larry." I handed the letter to Helen, then Frank, my hands shaking. No one spoke. The silence was heavy, not calm, but suffocating, like the air before a storm, charged with the weight of what we'd uncovered. We left the office, the city blurring past in soft gray shades of autumn, the world outside, indifferent to the chaos within me. That night, on Helen's pull-out couch, my phone rang, the sound slicing through the quiet like a warning. Unknown number. Lauren Williams? A man's voice, calm but cold as still water, sent a chill down my spine. This is Patrick Duffy. I used to work with your husband. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, my fingers tightening around the phone. Yes, you do, he replied, his tone sharpening, a blade beneath the calm. The documents from the safe. International accounts I helped set up. We should meet. I'm not meeting anyone, I snapped, my fear hardening into defiance, a spark igniting within me. You will, he said, his voice low, threatening. Because the others Larry worked with aren't as polite as I am. He hung up, the silence louder than his words, echoing with danger. The next morning, Frank looked shaken, his usual calm fractured. He called me too, he said, his voice low, his hands restless. And someone else, Aaron Paul. He says he's the source of the money Larry moved. If we don't return everything by the end of the week, there'll be consequences. He handed me the silver key from the safe, its weight cold in my palm. The deposit box might explain who owns what, he said, his voice steady but urgent. Do we really want to open another box? I asked, my voice trembling, fear and determination warring within me. What if it's worse? Helen touched my hand, her eyes fierce, her voice unwavering. Not knowing is what's eating you alive, Lauren. You need the truth, no matter how much it hurts. Frank mentioned a name. Tyler Posey, Larry's old college friend. The one person who told him the truth, even when it stung. He lived in Bluffton, 3 hours away, a small town where secrets seemed to linger in the air. We drove, the rain streaking the windshield like tears, the road stretching into a gray unknown, each mile heavy with anticipation. Bluffton greeted us with old oak trees, their branches heavy with moss, and a stillness that felt ancient, as if the town itself held its breath. Tyler's brick house, draped in ivy, looked like it belonged in a storybook, but the air was thick with secrets, the kind that cling to you like damp air. You're Lauren, Tyler said, his voice warm but weighted, his eyes searching mine as if he could see my pain. And you're Frank. Larry said you'd come if it all fell apart. He handed me a sealed envelope, its edges yellowed, its weight heavy with promise and dread. He told me to open this only if you both showed up together. I tore it open, my heart pounding, the sound of ripping paper loud in the quiet room. Inside was a short letter and a second will, different from the first, its words a fresh wound. It mentioned Olivia's unborn child, 30% of Larry's offshore savings, held in trust until the child turned 22. I felt the blood drain from my face, my hands trembling as I read. He trusted the child, Tyler said quietly, his voice steady but somber. Not the mother. He pointed to the flash drive from the safe, its black surface gleaming like a weapon. That holds records of every transfer, every person, every crime they committed to build this. If they come for you, don't back down. For the first time since Larry's death, I didn't feel small, didn't feel like the betrayed widow left to pick up the pieces. I was the one holding the map, and that gave me power, a strength I hadn't known I possessed. We went to the bank, the Federal Trust Building wedged between a law office and a historic site, its plain facade hiding the secrets within. Helen stayed in the car, her voice firm, her eyes sharp. "Text me if it gets weird," she said, a half smile on her lips. "And if they won't let you in, cry. No one says no to a crying woman at a bank." Frank gave a faint smile, but I couldn't muster one. The vault manager handed me gloves, checked my ID, and raised an eyebrow. His voice clipped. "This box hasn't been opened in years," he said. "It's registered under Mercury South Holdings." He led us through a series of locked doors, each one heavier than the last, to a cold, silent vault, then left us alone, the door closing with a thud that echoed like a warning. My hand hovered over the lock, the key cold against my skin. "Ready?" Frank asked, his voice low, his eyes searching mine. "No," I said, my voice trembling, but I turned the key anyway. It slid open smoothly, the sound sharp in the silence, revealing a manila folder and a single photo. The photo showed Larry, Frank, Patrick Duffy, and Aaron Paul standing before a black SUV, arms crossed, laughing like brothers, their camaraderie a betrayal in itself. They weren't just business partners, they were a team, a secret alliance I'd never known. Frank opened the folder, his hands steady, but his face tightening. Inside were signed deals, fake company records, and a document in bold red ink, Paul Blackmail Insurance. I whispered, my voice barely audible. Larry kept proof. Of everything. In that moment, I understood. He hadn't just left me a mess. He'd left me a weapon, a way to fight back against the shadows closing in. I met with Adam Driver, a lawyer who'd handled my father's estate years ago, his quiet honesty a comfort in the chaos. I told him almost everything, the documents, the threats, the secret accounts, the web of lies Larry had spun. I left out the affair, Olivia, the personal betrayals that cut too deep to share. He didn't flinch, his expression unchanging. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked, his voice calm but direct. "No," I said, my voice steady now, a resolve hardening within me. "I want protection." He nodded, his pen moving across a notepad. "We'll make copies. Digital, printed, stored in 3 separate places. One here, one with you, one with someone unconnected to either of us." Helen smirked from the corner of the room, her eyes glinting. "I know the perfect person." We spent hours scanning everything, the hum of the machine, a steady rhythm against the chaos. Larry's records were meticulous. Names, dates, bank transfers, fake bills, a trail of deceit that spanned countries and years. This wasn't just shady business. It was a criminal operation, a network of lies and greed that Larry had orchestrated. With him gone, his partners thought the proof died with him. They were wrong. Adam drafted a letter, short and sharp, its words a warning. I added one line in my handwriting, each letter deliberate. "Try me, LW." We sent it to Patrick Duffy's office by courier, the act a declaration of defiance. He called 20 minutes later, his voice tight with anger, barely contained. "You think you're clever?" he spat. "You're in over your head, Lauren." "No," I said, my voice calm, a quiet strength rising within me. "You are. My next call is to the IRS, then Interpol." Silence stretched across the line, heavy with tension. Then he laughed, a forced, hollow sound. "Okay, what do you want?" "Nothing," I said, my voice steady as steel. "Just stop. No more calls, no threats, no surprise visits. If you touch me or anyone I care about, the files go public. every name, every signature. You don't want that kind of trouble. I already have trouble, he said, his voice low, menacing. The difference is, I replied, my heart steady now. I'm not scared anymore. He hung up, the silence of victory, however small. 3 hours later, Aaron Paul called, his tone smooth, like a salesman closing a deal, his charm a mask for something darker. Lauren, I've heard about what you found, he said, his voice warm, almost friendly. I think we got off on the wrong foot. There is no foot, I said, cutting him off, my voice sharp. Just your name on dozens of illegal transfers. He laughed softly, the sound grating. All hypotheticals, of course. I let the silence stretch, letting him feel the weight of it. I know you think you can control this, Mr. Paul, I said, my voice low, dangerous. But here's the thing. I have nothing left. No reputation to protect, no company to save. That makes me very dangerous. He didn't respond. I ended the call, the act a small reclaiming of power. That night, Frank and I sat on Helen's porch, the stars cold and unyielding above, their light distant and indifferent. I didn't know he was capable of this, Frank said softly, his voice heavy with regret. My mom always said he was complicated. I thought she meant sad, not corrupt. He was both, I said, my voice quiet, the words heavy with truth. And maybe worse. The flash drive sat between us, small but heavy with secrets, its black surface gleaming like a locked door. We didn't open it that night or the next morning. It took 3 days. 3 days of pacing, of rehearsing my reaction, as if I could brace myself for more betrayal, as if I could prepare for the pain that waited. When I finally plugged it in, Helen brought tea, her presence a quiet anchor, her eyes steady as she sat beside me. A single folder appeared on the screen. For Lauren. Inside was a video, dated 11 days before Larry's death, its timestamp a countdown to the end. I clicked, my heart pounding, my fingers hovering over the mouse. The screen flickered, and there he was. Larry. But not the polished man from our wedding photos. Not the calm husband who brought roses on Mondays. This Larry was tired, his eyes sunken, his shirt wrinkled as if he hadn't slept in days, the weight of his secrets etched into his face. Lauren, he said, his voice heavy, breaking on my name. If you're watching this, I didn't make it. Or I ran out of time. There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it. You were never the one I needed to hide things from. You were the one I wanted to protect. But I waited too long, and now everything's catching up to me. He paused, rubbing his face, his hands trembling slightly. There's someone you trust too much. Olivia. She wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't that simple. She planned the pregnancy, every step calculated. When I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I was done, she changed. She said if I left her, she'd expose everything, the money, the fake accounts, everything I buried to protect you. My heart slowed, the room tilting, the air thick with dread. He leaned closer to the camera, his eyes haunted. I think she killed Pamela. I can't prove it, but the timing was too perfect. Pamela had packed her bags, booked a one-way flight to Porto, ready to start over. Then the crash. One car, no witnesses. They said the brakes failed, but she'd serviced the car the day before. Olivia knew Pamela was pregnant. Pamela didn't. Helen covered her mouth. Her gasp a soft sound in the quiet. Frank's hands curled into fists, his knuckles white. Larry's voice shook, a tremor of fear and guilt. I tried to fix it. I moved the money, made copies, ensured you'd have everything if something happened to me. I'm sorry I caused so much pain before doing the right thing. I was weak, Lauren, but you're not. If you want to walk away from all this, do it. Take what's yours, leave the rest behind. But if you decide to fight, don't do it alone. The screen froze, his face etched in pain, then went black. I sat there, numb, the truth sinking in like a stone. Larry knew what Olivia was capable of. He knew what was coming, and he'd given me the tools to fight back, to reclaim the life he'd stolen. I invited Olivia to brunch at Helen's, hugging her like a sister, my smile practiced, my heart cold. She thought she'd won, her laughter light as she rubbed her stomach, her movements deliberate. "He kicks when I drink orange juice," she said, her voice bright, oblivious to the storm brewing. I placed the flash drive on the table between us, its black surface a silent threat. "I know about the money, the lies," I said, my voice calm, each word deliberate. "I know he was going to leave you, and I know what happened to Pamela." Her lips parted, just a fraction, a crack in her facade. "You can't prove anything," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes flickering, betraying her fear. "You're right," I replied, my gaze unwavering. "But I don't have to. I'm not going to court or the police. I'm not wasting time hoping the system will fix this. I'm walking away, leaving you with the lies you thought you wanted." She stood, her face tight, her hands clenched. "You think that scares me?" "No," I said, meeting her gaze, my voice steady as steel. "But it will." I turned and walked inside, the door closing behind me with a soft click. Frank was waiting, his eyes steady, his presence a reminder that I wasn't alone. Later that afternoon, I met Adam Driver again. The lawyer's office, a fortress of order in the chaos. I gave him the flash drive, a signed statement, and one clear instruction. "If anything happens to me, send it to the press, every bit of it." I went home, to the house I'd shared with Larry, its silence a weight I could no longer bear. I walked through each room, my fingers brushing the backs of chairs, the door frames, the crack in the floor we'd never fixed. I packed one suitcase, leaving the roses, the photos, the life I'd thought was mine. I locked the garage door behind me, not to hide anything, but because I wasn't coming back, because I was done living in the shadow of his lies. A week later, I boarded a plane to Florida, a new lease signed in my name, a small cottage nestled near the mountains, its walls free of secrets. The air was fresh, the silence not suffocating but freeing, a canvas for a new beginning. No safes, no lies, no locked doors. Just me, Lauren Williams, widow, survivor. Not the woman betrayed, not the wife left behind, but the woman who turned silence into strength, who walked away from the storm and found her own peace, her own power.